Okay, David, he's been an amateur radio operator for 5 years, so since 2009, and David, you've got magnificent writing too, I might add. Initially a foundation licence operator, call sign maybe not, VK5FDGW, yep. Upgraded in 2011 to a standard called VK5LSB, and he's got many varied interests in the hobby, including DXC and QRP, satellites and homebrew, and he's a member of the the State Emergency Service Volunteer, and the SES group focus is on communications. So over to David, who'll talk a little bit about the DX Code of Conduct, which flows on well from John's topic. So thanks, David.
Thanks there, Paul, and good morning to everybody out there this morning as well. Hope you're all having a great day and going to have learn a lot out of this today as well. Just a little bit leading on where Paul was talking about me, I actually originally became involved in amateur radio going back many, many years ago. I was one of the pirates on the CB, and eventually Rob Gurr gave me a licence, the old, I think it was the Spectrum Management at the time, up on the corner of Poultier Street, North Terrace there. So Rob's probably got a lot to answer for, I suppose, in life for giving me the licence, but I was one of the pirates as well, operated as well, and I had a linear of 500 watts on CB. And and I did a lot of naughty things back there, but I've seen the light there, folks, so I've crossed over the other side now and all is good. On a lot of the other stuff as well, my licence, originally I sat my licence with the late Jeff Taylor, and with Jeff I was the only one in the group who didn't have electronics background as such, but I sat for the licence and I missed the question side of it by 1 point, so I passed the regulations, but for the practical side of it, I flogged it by 1 point. So I missed out. I got a bit disgruntled by the whole situation then, and threw it all in the corner. But luckily for me, I kept my regulations when it came through the post. And years later, I sat for the foundation licence here I am today. So there you go. Just on the DX Code of Conduct, there's something that's very close to me. It was reflecting on a call I had on a contact I had about 18 months ago, and it was an Antarctic station that came up in 20 metres out of the base station out of Antarctica during the daytime. And I was sitting home on the computer doing something for work, and I just had the radio just scanning across the 20-metre band, and up came this channel. And I heard it, and I thought, surely not. And so I went back to it, and nobody else came back to it until I came on. Then every man his dog jumped in. It was like a free fall for everybody. All right? And eventually the station in the Antarctic got really disgruntled with it and said, look, best we call this QSO to an end. So because it's just every man was tuning up on the band, it was just huge what was going on there, just people jumping the queue. And luckily for me, he was able to get the call sign pretty well, and he's forwarded the QSL card onto me. But just on that, this is a bit of a video. Right, and this leads on from what Brian was doing as well. So, yep, if you can hear this, go for
it. You've got to talk, so you just get it.
You've got a mind there, David.
We don't understand Vulcan.
Use the mind meld.
Pay me back.
Was huge, stretching far up the band. Fortunately for me, I had 2 receivers and could listen to the pile of callers. What I heard made me freaking sick. What the hell is wrong with you people? When the station says K7 question mark, that does not mean QRZ. You bozos need to shut the hell up and learn some ham radio manners and tradition. Some of you ignorant jackasses even keep calling when a station is trying to give his report. You know what? If we all follow proper procedures and use manners on the air, we would all be more successful in getting that rare contact. Before I go, let me leave you with this important bit of advice. Follow the rules, or I will be forced to administer the Vulcan nerve pinch and then kick your planetary ass. Have a good day.
I think Spock basically summed that up, that the Vulcan nerve pinch, and I think, there's a few people that, the bread man comes to mind, that should get the Vulcan nerve pinch, but there you go. Just on the Code of Conduct, why do we have it? Anybody like to take a guess at that? Why we have a DX Code of Conduct?
Traffic control.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. Anybody else?
Manners.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Well, I like to look at it as part of our licence agreement as well. The amateur radio services are services which rely on self-regulation for effective use of the spectrum band and allocation. So really it comes back to our licensing agreement as well, is one of the main points. The next one as well, poor operating behaviour adversely affects the enjoyment of all radio amateurs. It does not enhance the reputation of the amateur radio services community and hobby. This leads on from what Brian was saying as well. We're self-regulating and we should be looking after it as well. All radio amateurs be encouraged to operate to the highest level of proficiency with proper consideration for other users using the amateur radio bands. Quite often you don't hear that out there. You hear people jumping over top of another, dropping carriers, you know, just incredible stuff, and really under our self-regulation we look like clowns some days. Really it's a set of self-governing rules or group norms. Some people say manners, so it was what we operate by. So what are the rules? How many rules are there? Nobody wants to take a guess on it? There's 13 golden rules in the DX Code of Conduct, and they're very varied. It leads on what Brian was saying as well, but the main part was is I will listen and listen and listen again before calling. How often do you hear people just jump straight on and jump the queue? And listening is a very important part of our hobby. It's something we do. It's shortwave listeners as well. We quite often listen. So careful listening rather than rushing to transmit to get the DX into your log is a bonus. And you must listen also to find out why the DX is working and what they do. Because quite often you hear them calling, you know, like a station out of the States calling for a station Oceania, or they're calling for a station in Europe, and you quite often hear all the other people jumping as well, and it creates chaos out there for them all. I only call if I can copy the DX station properly. Quite often you hear people out there just calling these stations, especially out of the States, and you hear people in Australia just calling away, trying to contact these people, full well knowing they're probably never going to get them because the contact is so quiet. Sometimes, you know, I can hear them only just, and if I can hear them, I think the people down the road can only just hear them as well. So it's something to be very cautious of. I will not trust the DX cluster, and will be sure of the DX station's call sign before calling. The DX cluster is a great bonus to our hobby, but the other part of it is, well, sometimes bogus call signs go up there as well. So quite often the DX cluster may not be that accurate. So that's going on a bit later on this afternoon. I think it's the presenter doing that as well. I will not interfere with the DX station, nor anyone calling. It will never tune up on the DX frequency in the QX6 slot. Just like what Brian was saying, how many people with auto-tuners now, you're having a QSO with the station, you hear all these people just going over the top of you with the automatic antenna tuners just rattling away. And it really does not make for a good QSO at all. And also just, you know, the people that call, that continuously call, and you're having a QSO and people just keep on jumping in. It's just incredible. I will wait for the DX station to end a contact before I call. How often do you hear operators out there calling, you know, over the top of people without that break in the middle? And it's just incredible the way people do it. It covers a model operators as well, employing poor operating practices. And we are quite often afflicted with these people who really jump in to tell callers what's going on. I will always send my full call sign. How many people do you hear out there jump in and say VK6, VK4, VK3? Really, it's a regulatory requirement by law as part of our licence agreement that you actually use your full call sign rather than just the VK5 or the VK3. So please be aware of that in the future when you do that. I will always call and then listen for a reasonable interval. I will not call continuously. Quite often, as part of the DX Code of Conduct, people should be sitting there and just initially putting a call into the break in the transmission rather than just continuously calling, because if you haven't got it by about the third attempt, they're probably not hearing you, so you're probably wasting your time and in fact you're causing QRM to a lot of operators by your practices as well. I will not transmit when the DX operator calls another call sign, not mine. How often do you hear that out there when lots of people continue to, you hear the operator from the other end call the call sign and this other person jumps in and tries to take over that QSO. So just be mindful of that. I know, not saying any of you guys here do that, or girls, but I know some operators quite often do it. I will not transmit when the DX operator queries a call sign not like mine. Quite often out there you hear people out there trying to make contact with the DX station, and the station will come back, especially in competitions you hear this a fair bit as well. I know the recent Remembrance Day competition that was going on a fair bit, there were a station would call, what was that station again? And this other station would jump in and take the spot in the queue. So poor practices in the manners department. I will not transmit when the DX station requests geographical areas other than mine, and that's just leading back onto what I was saying before, that quite often the DX stations are calling into a certain part of the world, and other people just try to jump in and just to cause chaos around the place. When DX operator calls me, I'll not repeat my call sign unless I think he has copied it incorrectly. Nothing worse than hearing conversations or QSOs where people continue to go back every 30 seconds with the call sign. Because by law you're only required to provide your call sign every 10 minutes. And so quite often you hear just going backwards and forwards, and it's poor practice really in the code of conduct. I will be thankful even when I do make the contact, so that's something to be respectful of, and be thankful that you're able to make that contact as well down the track. I will respect my fellow hams and conduct myself so as to learn their respect, and to, well, not learn their respect, but earn their respect. And, you know, a bread man, you know, it just, you know, there's no respect at all there for that person, just the way they continue on. Or their carrier droppers as well that quite often come on. An example of that's the Monday Night Net, where people just continuously, continually drop carriers over some people. Whether it's a personal hatred for those people, I don't know, but it's just upsetting at times to hear that. This is a very little drawing, which is 2 metres, which is a bit, but what it shows in our younger years, quite often you had to listen before you could speak. And so the 2 people, the 2 cans, just relates to everything we're saying here today. So, you know, just to reflect on that. And of course I'm a member of Wyson as well, so I had to put that in there as well. And very active in that as well. Any questions, any of that? No, that's all from me.